Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to never miss a video from Radio Nasha.
उदय भाटिया ने ये किताब लिखी है. It's called Bullets Over Bombay. First of all, I must say congratulations because क्या मतलब कहते हैं ना फाड़ू किताब लिखी है. Boss, कैसे हो? Welcome to my show.
Thanks so much, Rohini.
You know, Satya, ये film जो है is a seminal film for most of us. जब when we were growing up, मुझे याद है जब मैंने ये film देखी थी. First of all, I was not allowed to watch this film. तुम्हें पता है? Because मैं स्कूल में थी और मेरे डैड ने कहा था it's too violent, so we can't watch this film. And my mom was like, अरे रंगीला देख चुके हैं, तो ये तो अभी कुछ भी देख सकते हैं. So it was, I remember it being a point of discussion in my house. लेकिन I love the way the book opens, you know, telling us कि वो 90s क्या था, वो दौर क्या था, because ये 90s मेरा भी था, तुम्हारा भी था. तो उधर मुझे बताओ ये किताब जो थी उसके लिए ये 90s का लेकिन 90s किड होना जरूरी है, राइट? तुम 90s में कहाँ थे, क्या कर रहे थे और कब सत्या देखी थी?
जब सत्या देखी थी तब मैं 14 साल का था. मैं लखनऊ में था तब. I was just generally in school, not a huge movie buff also. I just heard of it from some friends, I guess, and it just happened that I managed to see it around that time. My parents were also worried कि मतलब इसमें सुना है violence है ज़्यादा, is it an adult film, ये देख सकता है या नहीं, but somehow I saw it and I liked it then only. And so then many years later when I got the chance to write about it, I at least knew कि personally it's always been like a top 3, top 5 film for me. So I was happy to jump at that chance.
I absolutely love that you picked writing about this book. What's interesting also is the fact that it doesn't say Satya on the cover. मतलब obviously Satya के किरदार हैं, लेकिन interesting बात ये है कि ये जो title है, it's Bullets Over Bombay. So it's not just, you know, a deep dive into Satya. It's also a deep dive into that time जहाँ पर मुंबई बॉम्बे हुआ करता था. As someone who grew up in the city in the 90s, मुझे याद है कि ये अंडरवर्ल्ड का शहर बन गया था. हमारे जितने भी यू नो फिल्में थे, उनके प्रोड्यूसर्स थे, उनका म्यूजिक इंडस्ट्री था, देयर वाज ऑलवेज सम लिंक विद द अंडरवर्ल्ड. और हम शूट आउट्स के बारे में सुना करते थे और हम बेसिकली जस्ट बिकेम दिस रियली वियर्ड सिटी. यू नो, इट वाज ऑलमोस्ट लाइक दिस गॉथम दैट वी वर ऑल लिविंग इन. एंड यू नो वी न्यू दैट ये जो बम्बई हमें दिख रही है उसके गलियों के पीछे उस तरफ, यू नो, देयर इज दिस सॉर्ट ऑफ अनएक्सप्लोर्ड, जो अच्छे बच्चे जो हैं वो जाते नहीं है उस तरफ. And then suddenly ये film आती है and it just exposes like what a gangster's world could be like. And gangster films को अगर हम थोड़ा सा chronologically देखें तो मुझे याद है some sort of a heroism शुरू हुई थी perhaps in the 70s with The Godfather, you know, where I remember like earlier the gangster was the bad guy, कभी-कभी bad guy with a golden heart होता. फिर you know Godfather आई, Godfather में एक style you know आ गया. गैंगस्टरों की जिंदगी और उनकी कहानी जो है वो बहुत ज्यादा फेमस हो गई. आई रिमेंबर Goodfellas as being one of my favorite gangster films of all time. और फिर by the time it came to the Hindi film industry, you know, we've had this sort of fun with like गब्बर आया, फिर शाकाल आया, फिर मोगैम्बो आया, and they were villains but they were gangsters as well. I think Satya did something really different, right? सत्या ने क्या किया उदय इस गैंगस्टर फिगर के साथ, हमें बताइए.
I think दो चीजें की. One was that it made them more realistic in the sense that it made the violence more realistic. It made the stakes more realistic. More importantly, I think it made them more human. कि you know वो you can see कि उनका पूरा life gangster life नहीं है. वो जा रहे हैं, वो लड़की के साथ डेट पे जा रहे हैं, घूम रहे इधर बीच पे जा रहे हैं, they're arguing with their wife, they're going for a movie. So once you see them as normal people, I think that very much changed the genre after that. Whenever you got gangster portrayals after that, they became much more rich. Because you could see these people as regular people who just have this very dangerous life, but that's not their whole life.
You know, तुम्हारी किताब कमाल की है because it's such a deep dive into Satya. And I noticed through the किताब कि तुमने इतने सारे लोगों से बात की है, right? Because Satya was such an interesting film. It was also the truest sense of collaborative effort. यहाँ पर सौरभ शुक्ला का भी brilliance है, अनुराग कश्यप की भी टिचकियां हैं, राम गोपाल वर्मा तो थे ही, and then at the same time you had actors like Manoj Bajpayee and Urmila Matondkar who were all, you know, kind of finding their own paths, and then suddenly they came together, and then, you know, Satya bani. And then they all went on to do their own things, right? They were all, it was like a constellation of shooting stars right there. मुझे बताओ कि इस किताब को लिखने में आपको कितना वक्त लगा था, एंड कितने लोगों से बात की होगी लगभग?
शुरू मैंने 2015 में की थी, so it took 5-6 years. धीरे धीरे my own research took some time. फिर लोगों से बात करने में भी that took time. As you know, not easy to always pin down these people from their work, and it's quite amazing कि जिन लोगों ने सत्या पे काम किया था, they are all still very much in demand, very busy people in the industry nowadays, and it's not like, you know, that was their day. Like, this is still their very important part of the industry. So it was tough to get them, but pretty much everyone else, major person who worked on Satya, and I spoke to all of them. So
It is,
Ramu,
and it shows, yeah, because you spoke to everybody. I also like to believe that Ram Gopal Varma के साथ ये जो बातें हुई हैं were not the result of one day or 2 days or even perhaps a week. Did you have an extended period of time with him? कैसा था वो? How did you get to interview Ram Gopal Varma, and where did you interview him?
No, actually, I didn't have much of an extended time with him. It's just a session or two, really, but that was an extended one. मतलब मैं खींचता गया. I just kept sitting there until he kept talking, because बीच में there would be these long silences. फिर वो कुछ बोलते थे, then again there would be a silence. उनका कोई phone आता था producer से. So it was a challenging interview, but a lot of fun also, because I got to show him scenes from Satya on my laptop. I'd taken my laptop along. So I showed him कि ये scene में आपने क्या किया था, ये scene. So I was getting like a जैसे director's commentary है almost of some scenes from Ram Gopal Varma on Satya. So that was a lot of fun for me.
You know, it's an excellent book. Once again, it's called Bullets Over Bombay. Please pick up a copy. लेकिन आज उदय आप मेरे show पर हैं, and we're going to do something really special on Radio Nasha, which is you're going to pick, I think, you know, a couple of your favorite scenes from the film, scenes, moments, songs, you know, जो भी आप चाहें, and tell us what you might have discovered. And जब हम दोबारा से ये film देखेंगे, we'll be like, हाँ यार, उदय ने ये कहा था, and that's why it's going to be exciting for us. What would you like to start with from the film? बताइए.
I'll start with गोली मार भेजे में, because I think film की publicity भी वहीं से शुरू हुई थी. In the 90s, song promos were a lot more important than trailers. We would hardly see many trailers, but you know, songs were the thing that brought audiences to the theaters, and this was such a big hit at that time, as you will know, this thing, and it was almost a perfect advertisement for the film. Matlab, you see that song and you get a very clear idea ki what this film might be like. And it's so unusual because the situation is one ki in another film it would have been an item number. This thing, but this is an item number, but without stars, without any dancers. It's just men and beards. That's it.
Yeah. It's an item number जहाँ पर actually it's just a bunch of guys dancing एक room में, literally एक room में, and वो इतने खुश हैं. It was unlikely, right? कि मुझे याद है जब मैंने ये गाना देखा था, तब गुलजार साहब का बहुत नाम था, आज भी है, you know. I was shocked कि ये गाना गुलजार साहब ने लिखा है.
Yeah, that's true. There's a very amusing story also. Nobody actually liked Gulzar's lyrics for this, including Ramu. But किसी में ये हिम्मत नहीं थी कि वो उनसे जाके बोलें कि सर ये क्या है, खरोचना दबोचना आपने क्या लिखा है, ऐसे कैसे रिकॉर्ड कर सकते हैं. तो they sent the youngest person on the crew, to go and tell him कि sir आप कुछ और लिख दो. That person turned out to be Anurag Kashyap. And Kashyap went to him and he's like, sir, can you write something different? And Gulzar shooed him off. He said, पहले उर्दू तो बोलना सीख लो पहले. And भगा दिया उन्होंने. And of course, the song was then a huge hit after that. And everyone realized कि Gulzar Saab, who was like 20 years senior to everybody on that set, actually knew what he was doing when he wrote that kind of rough lyrics.
Yeah, and I think आगे चलकर भी, I mean, he's given ample examples of that, right? उन्होंने कितने कमीने का जो soundtrack था, उसमें कमाल के गाने लिखे हैं. Like एक तरफ उन्होंने मोहब्बत जैसा गाना लिखा है, and then पहली बार मोहब्बत की है is another song from that track, but the title song, which is आजा आजा दिन निचोड़े रात की मटकी फोड़े, एक तरफ lyrical है, but दूसरी तरफ it could be something that Charlie sings, and I think that's his amazing quality, because Gulzar Sahab वो किसी के लिए भी गाना लिख सकते हैं, and I think that was amply proven by a song like Goli Maar Bheje Mein. Today we have Uday Bhatia talking to us once again. This is a fabulous book. Please pick it up. It's called Bullets Over Bombay. जहाँ पर Satya is the overarching sort of narrative जिसके अंदर I would say it's the peg to talk about many other things. It's a peg to talk about Bombay of the time. It's a peg to talk about this sort of underworld, जिससे हम डरा करते थे 90s में, very very obviously. And it's also a peg to talk about what the movie making of the 90s used to be like. I think it's been fascinating reading this book. But do you want to talk to us about one of your favorite scenes, perhaps, जो आपको बेहद पसंद है इस फिल्म से?
I'll talk about the most iconic scene, which is Manoj
Mumbai
Bajpayee.
ka King Kong.
Exactly. This comes after a lot of personal success for him. The police commissioner, they have killed Amod Shukla. They have killed Guru Narayan. So his rival is dead. उसके लिए मतलब everything is going perfectly for him. So this is that moment at which he feels कि अब कोई कुछ नहीं बिगाड़ सकता मेरा, which in the gangster genre is the most dangerous moment, because there is an unwritten rule in any gangster film that as soon as you become overconfident and you feel कि you actually reached like a safe position, that is the point at which you start falling. And exactly वही होता है. Literally after this scene, everything goes wrong.
मुझे याद है, just to illustrate your example, there's a film that I really love. It's a Scorsese film called Casino. और Casino में भी आपको याद होगा जहाँ पर वो कहते हैं उससे कि तुम ये कोट पहनकर क्यों गए कसिनो में, तुम्हें पता नहीं है कि कोट, गाड़ी, लड़की, ये सारी चीजें आप शो ऑफ नहीं कर सकते basically. It's when you start doing that, it's when people get whiff of what you're up to. And sorry, that just flashed in my mind. So I had to share that with you. But please go ahead. You're right. That was a scene that was the peak of Manoj Bajpayee. Also, I'll tell you why that scene was important for me. I grew up in this city और मेरे लिए हमेशा बॉम्बे था. लेकिन क्योंकि ये डायलॉग था मुंबई का किंग कॉन, and this was such a powerful dialogue, I think कहीं ना कहीं this film helped us normalize calling it Mumbai. Yeah? This is just for me.
That's very interesting. I never thought of that, because I think the renaming was what 2-3 years before that.
Just a couple of years before.
Rangila time was when I think it. I think the year when Rangila released was when it renamed.
Yes, and ये acceptance नहीं थी. Also, in a mainstream Bollywood film, तब तक इसे Bombay भी आई थी 96 में, आपको याद होगा. So the Bombay, Mumbai, it was still Bombay, but I think this really kind of like said, you know what, it's Mumbai now. क्योंकि भी कुमात्रे ने कह दिया.
There's another thing in 98, if you remember, वो Javed Jafri had done that rap number Mumbai.
I am Mumbai. Yes.
That was also same year.
Same time.
So yeah. This scene was also the shooting was very interesting because Bajpayee actually had vertigo. He had a fear of heights. So जो सौरभ शुक्ला थे वो उनके पैर पे लेट गए थे when the Bajpayee's body was not fully in frame, so that Bajpayee could at least feel कि he won't like faint and fall down. And which is why actually if you look at the scene, there aren't any full body shots of Bajpai from close up.
Yes.
Only when you go very far away can you see the full figure of Bajpai. It's because someone was holding his feet down.
Imagine that. And he tells us this story. In fact, उन्होंने एक interview में हमसे कहा था कि he was afraid and he didn't even really know what he said in that scene, in that moment. All he knew that he had to say Mumbai ka king kaun. You know, so he said कि बाकी सब तो याद ही नहीं है क्या बोला, इतनी फटी हुई थी, इतना डरा हुआ था. And that's when he, of course, just remember that he has to come to this line eventually. What a fabulous scene, giving us goosebumps even today. Thank you for that, Uday. Let's move to another scene of yours that, you know, maybe that we might see again with new eyes. Kaun sa scene hoga?
One personal favorite of mine is the one jab भीकू पी के घर आता है, वो प्यारी उसे दरवाजे पे मिलती है, प्यारी played by शेफाली शाह, who's his wife, and वो लड़ने लगते हैं, प्यारी उसे डांटती है और फिर वो उसको थप्पड़ मारता है और फिर प्यारी उसे वापस थप्पड़ मारती है and वो दोनों हंसने लगते हैं उसके बाद. It's such a brilliant scene because as we were talking earlier, the personal lives of these gangsters sort of comes out so vividly in it, and it's also really funny, but both the actors are so intense in it that it's just perfect. Like you can really imagine why the two of them are together in the film.
Yes, you know, and that moment is so important because I think you said this beautifully in your book. आपने कहा कि बाकी के scenes में उतनी acting नहीं है, you know, मतलब in terms of performances, you know, this is not really that film जहाँ पर आप एक scene को देखेंगे और कहेंगे यार क्या performance है. Of course, Manoj Bajpayee, fantastic actor. That, you know, Bhiku Matre, Mumbai ka King Kong is another piece of brilliant acting, but you don't expect this sort of performance per se, right? And it's the two of them. और जब वो उसे वापस थप्पड़ मारती है, मुझे याद है, I was so happy that कहीं ना कहीं हमें लगा कि चलो यार ये गैंगस्टर की दुनिया में ही हो सकता है उस टाइम पर, okay, but at the same time it kind of normalized this sort of like equality, right? Because ये गैंगस्टर है तो क्या हुआ, at least हमारी सोसाइटी से हम उन्हें नीचा देखते हैं, but उनकी सोसाइटी में एक चीज है जो हमारी सोसाइटी में नहीं है, which is equality. And that to me was so important in this scene, and I was so happy you wrote about it.
Absolutely. And you can see the influence on the later gangster films, the wives of the gangster characters. Take the Richa Chadda character in Wasepur, Gangs of Wasepur, or take the Rasika Dugal character in Mirzapur. And it's they're very they fight for their own, and they're very as aggressive as their husbands, really. And it's you can draw a line from Pyari in Satya to these portrayals, I think.
Absolutely. What a fantastic scene. Dobara se zarur dekhega when you watch Satya again. I think our chat is going to compel my audience to rewatch Satya, because I did that. At one point, I had to stop reading and say, no, I have to watch the film again. Because, you know, if you watch the film and then you read it alongside, it's almost like, it's like a handbook, right? It's like, ye aapke notes yahan par likhe hain Uday ne is film ko lekar. So this is pretty great. All right, tell me the last scene that you want to talk about today. I'm going to make a request कि आप actually इस scene की बात करें, because ये scene भी बेहद important है मेरे लिए. It's the scene where Urmila goes to that really sleazy music director, Runu Sagar. हाँ. So ये scene, your observations about it?
It's quite bold of Satya and Ramu and the writers to have shown that scene, जिसमें वो पहले what happens is कि विद्या Runu Sagar के पास जाती है for an audition because she wants to be a playback musician, and he basically tells her कि you'll have to sleep with me and I will give you the job. तो वो चली जाती है वापस, and she tells Satya without knowing कि Satya is a gangster, and Satya tells the gang कि उसको डरा के आओ. So then the following scene is that वो रात को बिस्तर में सो रहा है, and he gets a phone call, and they threaten him, and he says कि I don't care. तो वो they shoot a bullet through his window. उसके पीछे, and then they call him again and they say कि ये आएगी तुम इससे ही गवाओगे.
And cut to the next scene she's singing, which I find hilarious.
And it's also very funny. He goes to her place and वहाँ पे he's looking for her and he's like, Vidya ji कहाँ है? Vidya ji कहाँ है?
Love it. So, but that's it, right?
But it was it was very bold of them to do it, because Gulshan Kumar had been shot almost immediately after shooting. The shooting of the film had started. Gulshan Kumar was killed. And at that time, he was like Bollywood mein, he was like one of the top guys. Like he was a complete power broker at that time. And to have the gangster threatening and a music guy in this film, it is quite a clear reference कि लोगों के मन में that they would think of Gulshan Kumar at that time. So कहीं तो these guys may have thought कि यार are we making a mistake? Are like the actual gangsters going to get mad at us कि हम ये कर रहे हैं? But they went ahead with it, and it's a very I think it shows very honestly what life in Mumbai must have been like at that time.
Yeah, it does. And I think that these are the reasons why this film has kind of like overstayed its sort of welcome, right? And in a good way. Satya is not a film. It's so weird because when we talk about 90s films, 90s films have a little bit of a dating on them. कहते हैं कि यार ये तो 90s वाली picture थी. I think Satya's escaped that. It doesn't have that sort of datedness, because for some reason, the way it was shot, the way, people have spoken in that film, आज भी ये film actually dated नहीं लगती है. आज भी gangsters और लोग ऐसे ही बात करते हैं. आज भी मुंबई के गली कूचे जो हैं ऐसे ही दिखते हैं. I remember watching the lanes of my own city so up close for the first time. And I remember कि एक ऐसा scene था that you talked about जहाँ पर, they don't know कि actually कौन से station पर shooting हुई थी. shooting हुई थी, whether it was Mahim station or whether it was Matunga Road station. You might forget the details, but what leaps out is the fact that Bombay itself was one of the biggest characters in the film, because hamare liye, it was like watching our city with new eyes for the first time. It's been wonderful talking to you, and honestly, Uday, I can keep talking about the films, but मैं चाहती हूँ कि हम अभी audience को भी ये मौका दें कि अब ये आपकी किताब उठाएं और इसे पढ़ें, and maybe they can share a couple of observations with you as well. Are you on Twitter? अगर लोग आपसे बातें करना चाहें इस फिल्म के बारे में?
Yes, I am on Twitter. YOODAY, Uday.
Uday. Okay.
So any complaints or observations about the book, I will be very happy to hear them. अभी तक मैं in my job मैं review करते आया हूँ इतने साल. So now I'm ready to face some reviews also.
Oh my God, I must say that everybody has been spreading the word about your book. Right from Anurag Kashyap, who put up a post about it, to Hansal Mehta, I think, also put up a post about it. So there's a lot of support for the book, and iska matlab yahi hai that it's a book that, it's a film that people dearly loved, and it's a book that does justice to talking about that film. So thank you so much. आप मेरे शो पर आए इस किताब के बारे में बातें करने के लिए. I feel so honored that you spared the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rohini.